I never imagined I'd be sharing my story here, but I need to get this off my chest. After 12 years of marriage filled with love, hope, and countless prayers for a child, I found myself standing alone in our living room, watching my husband pack his bags. It felt like I was nothing more than an old habit he had finally decided to quit. Looking back, the signs were there. The late nights at the office, the cold distance in his eyes, the growing resentment in his voice whenever the topic of children came up. But I was blinded by love and the belief that we would somehow make it through. The years were tough. Doctor visits, endless tests, treatments that drained both our savings and my spirit. I spent countless nights crying in silence, hiding my pain behind fake smiles while the world moved on, oblivious to the storm inside me. Attending baby showers, forcing myself to celebrate for others while feeling like a failure inside. The whispered conversations behind my back, the well-meaning but cruel advice, just relax, it will happen when you least expect it. I expected my husband to be my rock, my support. But instead, he pulled away. The man who once promised to stand by me no matter what had become a stranger in our own home. And now, he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He was leaving, and he had a reason that, in his mind, justified it all. His words still echo in my head. You can't give me a child. I deserve to have a family. I'm leaving. As if I had chosen this. As if I hadn't spent years in hospitals, crying in bathrooms, waking up to empty arms and an aching heart. And then there was her. His mistress. Younger, eager, and now, apparently, pregnant. The final nail in the coffin. He had it all planned out. He was going to be a father, start a new life, leave me behind like a failed experiment. It was almost laughable. Because what he didn't know, what he never even bothered to ask, was that I had gone to see the doctor months ago. I had already taken the tests, already heard the results. And I knew exactly who was to blame. It wasn't me. I kept the truth to myself, carrying the weight of it like a secret weapon, waiting for the right moment. I could have told him, could have thrown the truth in his face, and watched his world crumble in an instant. But no, that would be too easy. He had made his choice. Now he would have to live with it. He zipped the suitcase, straightened up, and finally met my eyes. There was no sadness, no hesitation. Just relief. Like a man who had convinced himself he was doing the right thing. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just watched him walk out the door, feeling the weight of all those years settle on my shoulders. Let him think he had won. Let him think he had escaped. He had no idea what was coming next. The silence in the house was deafening. It had been days since he walked out, since I watched him zip up his suitcase and leave like I was nothing more than a failed investment. I hadn't moved much since then, drifting from the bedroom to the couch, my body heavy with exhaustion, my mind replaying the moment over and over. 12 years. 12 years of marriage, of sacrifice, of waiting, gone in a single moment. I had imagined us growing old together. I had pictured the life we were supposed to have, the future we were meant to build. And yet, here I was, alone in an empty house filled with ghosts of a life that had never fully materialized. The world didn't stop just because my life had shattered. The sun still rose, people still laughed, and somewhere out there, my husband was playing house with another woman, probably placing a hand on her growing belly, believing that he had finally found his real family. It should have destroyed me. But instead, a strange sense of clarity settled over me. Because I knew something he didn't. I knew something that would unravel everything he thought was true. I had gone to the doctor alone months ago. I had taken the tests. I had sat in that cold, sterile office, clutching the chair as the doctor delivered the news. The problem wasn't me. It had never been me. I remembered every detail of that moment, the way the doctor hesitated before speaking, the clinical detachment in his voice as he explained the results. My fertility was not the issue. The years of pain, of failed treatments, of guilt weighing on my shoulders like an anchor, it had all been for nothing. I had spent over a decade carrying the shame of something that was never mine to bear. It had been him all along. And yet, he had walked away with such certainty, so sure that I was the one who had failed him. He had found someone younger, fertile, someone who could give him the life he believed he deserved. The irony of it all made me almost laugh. Because he had no idea. And now I had a choice to make. I could let him live in his delusion, let him bask in the glow of his fresh start, while the truth loomed over him like a storm cloud he hadn't noticed yet. Or I could tear his world apart the way he had torn apart mine. For the first time in days, I moved with purpose. I walked to the dresser, pulling open drawers, my fingers brushing over old memories, photos of us smiling on vacations, anniversary gifts now meaningless, wedding bands that had once symbolized forever. Then, I reached for the envelope. The test results. The cold, undeniable proof of his failure, not mine. He had taken everything from me, my peace, my marriage, my dignity. But he had also given me something in return. Power, and I plan to use it. I didn't rush. Revenge, when done right, isn't impulsive. It's calculated. It's patient. And most importantly, it's undeniable when it finally lands. I let the days pass, pretending to be the broken woman he had left behind. I ignored the sympathetic glances from neighbors, the hushed whispers of pity. I stayed silent on social media, posted nothing, responded to no one. Let him think I had disappeared into the shadows, too devastated to function. Meanwhile, I watched. I saw how quickly he tried to erase me. His mistress, no, his fiancée now, was already flashing a ring on her finger, a gaudy, oversized diamond he couldn't afford when we were together. They were celebrating, grinning at cameras, parading their happiness like it was a badge of honor. Finally expecting, one of her captions read, "God's perfect timing." Perfect timing indeed. I kept waiting for it to happen. The moment he realized his perfect life wasn't so perfect after all. I imagined his world slowly crumbling, the doubt creeping in like a cancer. Would he notice first when the baby didn't look like him? Or would it take the hospital visit, the blood tests, the genetic proof staring him in the face? Either way, I wouldn't have to wait much longer. Then, on a random Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Not a call. A text. From him. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, almost laughing. So it had begun. I took my time responding. Hours. Let him sweat. Let him wonder if I'd even acknowledge him. When I finally replied, I kept it simple. "What for?" The typing bubble popped up immediately. Desperate. Impatient. It's important. I could already picture it. The panic, the realization creeping in, the weight of everything he had abandoned finally crashing down on him. But I wasn't going to make it easy for him. I turned off my phone. Let him wait. I woke up the next morning to more missed calls than I could count. Voicemails, unread messages, all from him. The man who had once packed his bags without a second glance was now clawing his way back, desperate for a conversation. I took my time getting out of bed, stretching as the sun filtered through the blinds. The old me, the one who cried herself to sleep over his betrayal, would have jumped to answer, seeking closure, begging for an explanation. But I wasn't her anymore. When I finally listened to one of the voicemails, his voice was frantic. "Please, just pick up. I need to talk to you. It's serious." I smirked. It was happening even faster than I thought. I made myself breakfast, ate slowly, and let the day drag on before finally texting back. "What's wrong?" Seconds later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then he texted again. "I need to see you." I could practically hear the panic in his words. He was unraveling. It was time. I agreed to meet in a neutral place, an outdoor cafe, public enough that he wouldn't cause a scene. When I arrived, he was already there, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked hollow. Good. The moment he saw me, he exhaled in relief, like I was some kind of lifeline. I sat across from him, silent, waiting. He hesitated before speaking. His hands trembled slightly. "She's pregnant," he said. As if I didn't already know. I said nothing. Let him keep talking. She had a doctor's appointment. They did some tests. His voice cracked. They told her the baby isn't mine. I tilted my head, feigning confusion. That's impossible, right? He rushed on, his desperation bleeding through. We've been trying for years. It had to be me. I leaned back, crossed my arms, and let the silence stretch between us. And then, with the calmest voice I could muster, I finally dropped the bombshell. It was never me, you know. His face twisted in confusion. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and slid it across the table. His name was on the test results. Proof of his infertility. Proof that he had been the problem all along. He snatched it up, eyes scanning the pages, his breathing growing ragged. His hands shook. I watched as the realization hit him like a freight train. His entire world, his ego, his new life, his perfect family was built on a lie. And now it was crashing down around him. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and looked down at him one last time. You threw me away for something that was never real, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. Now you get to live with it. Then, without another word, I walked away.